Hi guys, welcome to webinar 22. My name is Lindsay and today I'll be joined with Maria Brophy. She's an art business consultant and today I kind of just wanted to like pick at her brain and learn more about, I guess, more about the art business and also how she herself as a consultant helps other artists, become successful. As always, you guys are free to ask questions towards the end when I open up the floor. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to put them in the chat as well. And then we'll answer them towards the end or when uh, when we have some time to do so. Well, hi, Maria. I actually wanted to see if you could talk a bit about yourself and how you got into the business of art.
Okay, I thank you. I got into the business. Well, it's funny because when I was a kid, I always imagined that I would surround myself with artists and musicians, but I had no idea how to make that happen. And I eventually got a lot of really boring jobs in the insurance industry. And the way I got into art was I met this guy who was painting surfboards for a living. And this was 27 years ago. And this guy named Drew Brophy and I fell in love. And shortly after we started dating, I said, what you're doing with your art is really cool. You're painting surfboards, you're traveling around the world, surfing and doing this for a living. But I think we can do a lot more with your art. And I didn't know anything about the art business at all, but I had a curiosity of how can you do it? How can you take an artist that's doing this one very specific thing that's making, a little bit of money and grow it? And so I started helping Drew and we started experimenting with a lot of different ways to make money with his art. And over time, we had some success. We had a lot of failures too. We tried a lot of different things. And I eventually quit my job. And this was over 20 years ago and started working with Drew full time. And since then, we've figured out how to take the art of an artist who never went to art school, never went to college, and we took him from making just a little bit of money with his art painting surfboards to becoming one of the best known surfing artists in the world. And making multiple six figures. And now we own an art gallery in San Clemente, California. And I I realized that we had figured some things out that a lot of artists did not figure out. And so I started writing about the things that we learned that were working and the things we learned that weren't working. And I started writing about them. And I eventually wrote the book, Art, Money, Success, which is this book right behind me, and started coaching other artists and helping them to figure things out on their end as well. So that's how I ended up doing what I'm doing. It was really just the love of art and the fire I had in my belly to figure out this puzzle called art business.
Oh my God, that's fantastic. And I think what's great is that it seemed like Drew had like someone in their corner telling them like you can make so much more with your art. You can expand so much outside of your scope. And I feel like everyone kind of needs that Maria in their life where, or even within themselves, kind of just telling them, you can expand yourself, you can go into new industries or new mediums, if you will. So it's fantastic to hear that you and your partner were able to accomplish so much and, I definitely hear from a lot of artists is where they start from, a job that, they're not 100% happy with, but they would like their side gig, which is usually art, to become their main occupation. So it's really fantastic that, you offered a book that has, you talking about how what made you succeed and what helped you and your partner in that aspect.
So I think that the number one thing that every creative person has to understand, if you want to make money with what you're doing, you have to think, for the business side of things, you have to think like an entrepreneur. So you have to switch your thinking. Now, a lot of artists will say, oh, but I don't have a business mind. Well, that's not true. Everyone has access to that little business part of their mind. It's just learning the things that you need to know that work and learning the things that don't work, or rather unlearning what you might have been taught that isn't working. So there's so much information out there now. I mean, my book is just one of many books on the market that will teach you the business end of art. And back when Drew and I got started, nobody was sharing information on any of this stuff. You didn't have podcasts or blogs. I mean, they really didn't exist. That's that was a long time ago. So we had to figure things out the hard way. But for anybody listening right here and now today, there are so many free resources for you. And then once you work your way, when you listen to podcasts, like I have a podcast, it's called Art, Money, Success. It's on Spotify. And there's other artists that are putting podcasts out there on the business of art. But really, it's just educating yourself on different ways to make money. And there's many different ways, and not all of those ways are going to resonate with you. So you can pick and choose what you want to do for yourself.
Then I guess kind of leaning into that, what has worked for you and your partner?
Okay, so there's a couple things that worked for us. Number one, we figured out a really long time ago how to make money off of the same image again and again and again and again. And I'm going to use an example that I use all the time because it's really great. In 2006, Drew painted a painting called Sunrise, and that painting was one of his best paintings. One of his most popular. But here's the thing, when he painted it, we had no idea it was going to be so popular. The painting itself sold in an art gallery for like $4,000 back in 2006. But we captured the image digitally, a high-res image, and we started making art prints of it. And we made more money off of it. Then we started licensing it for other companies to put on their products. And so we've had Sunrise printed on many, many, many different products. So this is, if you're watching this right now, here's an image of Sunrise. This is actually a mat, like a kind of like a rubber mat that I have on my desk. But this has been printed on clothing, water bottles, hats, skateboard decks, surfboards. I mean, it's literally over 100 products. So get this, since 2006, we've made over $500,000 from this one image. Let that blow your mind.
Wow, that's like really incredible. I can't imagine like, especially for Drew, he must have like painted and be like, it's my one of my other paintings, it's, probably gonna be sold as an original and there's that. But you guys just found it and it hit. It's
And
fantastic.
yeah, and we still sell prints. I mean, this is one of the things we order from Luma all the time. We get orders for this canvas print every week. We're still shipping these out. All these years later, we're still, so you might talk to me 5 years from now and we're going to hit $1 million mark from this one painting. So that's it. Just we figured out how to leverage the art, because you can only paint so many paintings. And painting takes time, or some people create art on digitally, same thing, or photographs, same thing. I mean, you can only produce so much, and out of every really 20 or 30 pieces of art that you produce, one is going to be like your hit song. One is going to be your hit song. And if you think of your art as like music, that song, Dolly Parton, her song called I Will Always Love You, it was a hit back when Elvis was alive. And, back in those days when Elvis was still alive, he went to Dolly Parton and he said, look, well, actually, he had his people go to Dolly Parton's people and say, hey, Elvis wants to buy all the rights to this song from you. And at the time, Dolly Parton was an up and coming artist. Nobody really knew who she was. She wasn't famous yet. And any other up and coming singer would have jumped on the chance to have Elvis buy their song. But Dolly Parton was smart. She said, if this song is good enough for Elvis to want to buy it, I'm going to keep it because that means this song's going to make me money for the rest of my life. And then it's going to make my children money, my husband money, my family money. And that's exactly what she did. She said no to Elvis. She was probably the only musician who ever said no to him. But to this day, she still makes money off of that song.
Like, let that be an example for artists. You never know what your magnus opus is going to be.
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly. You never know what your hit is going to be. You can try to guess, but you're usually going to be wrong. Drew and I always laugh about this. Like he'll do a whole series of art. Just last May, he did 9 new paintings, and he called it the Surfer's Journey series. And I picked out one that he did of these mushrooms. It was like a mushroom in a wave, and I said, "Oh, this one's going to sell first because mushrooms are really hot right now." And then I picked this other one and I said, this one's going to sell last. Well, I was completely wrong. Flip it. The one that I said was going to sell last sold first and vice versa. So I just know to not even try to guess because what you love is not always going to be necessarily what everybody else loves.
And, let that be shown for a lot of people who do, turn out art pieces, kind of, gauging every time, oh, what's the audience feedback going to be like? You honestly will never know. And sometimes you just have to put your creativity and just put it out there just because it's like casting a net in that regard. You don't know what you're going to pick up from all, your art making. But kind of moving into a different part of, artist success, what success have you seen in prints and reproductions?
Well, so much. We've kind of figured out that when we come out with a new image that Drew's fan base hasn't seen yet, we have this drop system where we print it out. We'll do a limited number signed edition on paper, and then another limited signed edition on canvas. And we let everybody know. Now, this works great if you have an avid fan base doing the limited edition runs. Well, I think it works regardless, but it works really well for us. So typically we'll sell out if we do 20 of, we'll choose like 4 different sizes and we'll say, okay, there's 20 available in each size. And some of them will be on paper and some of them will be on canvas. And then we will come out with an open edition, which is unsigned, unnumbered after the limited edition is sold out. And we've had a lot of success with that.
And then, if you don't mind me asking, do you sell those limited editions at a premium price, or how is your price breakdown for
No,
everything?
that's a great question. So the limited edition, yeah, we have higher pricing on the signed, numbered limited edition. And then the open edition is less. And then one thing we always keep is a really large image. Like we'll pick the largest size option as what we call the collector's edition. So for example, if you go on drewbrophyart.com right now and you look at one of his art prints, let's say Sunrise, the one that I was using as an example before, there are multiple size options in paper and canvas. And then the largest canvas, we add about $400 to that price for the collector's edition, which is signed, hand signed by Drew. So that's the only option to get a signed print from him is if you get the large collector's edition. And that seems to work for us. So we've been doing that for a few years now and it works.
Oh, that's very interesting. What I think is really cool is that you're incentivizing people to buy those collector and bigger sizes because it's not just the print itself, but it's also the exclusivity of the signature that a lot of people do enjoy and find value in. So I think that's really smart in that aspect. Are there other streams of income that artists should consider outside of selling prints and
Oh,
originals?
oh yes. Oh, I love this question. Sorry, my mind went blank for a second. I was reading the chat. Uh, my ADHD just kicks in like all the time.
You're fine. You're fine.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I talk about this all the time. I've got a whole chapter dedicated to art licensing in my book. Um, we've been licensing Drew's art for 20 years. Now, what that means is we give a company limited rights to print his art on their products. Now, licensing is not for everyone, but for us, it's great because we make, I mean, just on licensing alone, we make over 100,000 a year or more, depending on the deals we have going on that year, just in licensing royalties. So just to give you an example, one that we just came out with is with a company called Ethica. They make boxers, girls, boxer short or boy shorts and tops, socks, I mean, basically, it's an underwear company, but it's not just any underwear company. They're really cool. Like when you look up Ethica, like they just have the coolest prints on their products, and the quality is really good, which is important to us. We don't do anything with companies that make poor quality products, and we don't do anything with companies that have a message that we don't believe in. So we like working with companies that make quality products, that do fun stuff, that are mostly action sports, because that's the lifestyle Drew and I live: surfing, skateboarding, all that stuff. And then companies that are not killing the environment purposely. So the way it works is a company like Ethica will come to us, or will meet and say, okay, we want to do a collaboration or come out with a Drew Brophy line of products. We go over the art, we go over the timing, we go over all the details. Usually we ask for money up front. We'll say, okay, we'll agree to like a percentage, like let's just say 6% or 8% of their sales revenues. With every company, it's different, but I'm just making up numbers here: 6%, 8%, sometimes 10%, sometimes 15% of the sales revenues. And then we'll usually get an advance up front. I like to ask for anywhere from $4,000 to $10,000 up front. That's if we're using existing art. If they have us create all new art, we're the price goes, like we get like double that up front, because it's a lot of time involved. But I like to work with existing art because we know what the popular images are based on our sales. So I know that's a lot of information I just threw out there, but basically that is a great revenue stream: licensing art, doing what some people call collaborations with other companies.
Wow, and that's fantastic. I mean, even us here at Lumaprints, we do license from artists and all that. And it's one of those niche parts that I don't think a lot of artists look into, or they seem to kind of forget that that's an opportunity there for especially their pre-existing art, right? So it's great that you bring it up. Thank you.
And again,
Um,
it's just another way to make money off the same image again and again and again and again, like I talked about earlier. It's leveraging the work that you're doing. Because here's the thing: if you are leveraging the work you're doing, if you're making more money off of one image, you have more time to create. You have more time to think about your next masterpiece. You have more time to enjoy with your family. You have more time to do the things you love outside of painting, because life really does need to be a balance. You shouldn't be working 7 days a week. You are not going to create your best work that way.
And that's a really good piece of advice, I'd say, for artists, no matter like where you are in the process. Make sure you give yourself time to take breaks. Always focus on your creativity, because if you get too into the grunt work of it all, it becomes tiresome, and it's so hard to churn out creativity after, you worked all day working on the business side of things. So balance is key, like you mentioned. But, when it comes to, previously you said that, you had a lot of success selling your art online and selling prints and limited editions. Is there any piece of advice you could give to artists who are trying to improve on their sales online?
Honestly, I'm still like figuring this out. One thing I learned is you can't just put up a website and think people are going to come.
Hmm.
It doesn't work that way. Nobody's going to find your website. You have to find different ways to get people to your website. I know a lot of artists have great success with Pinterest. I personally don't use Pinterest, but oh my gosh, I know a lot of artists that use it, and they, even without paying for advertising, Pinterest, if you do it right, you're going to get traffic to your site. TikTok has a new thing out right now. Now it's going to cost a little bit of money, but they have this TikTok shop where you can sell right off of TikTok, and I'm looking into that right now. But as far as getting people to your website, for us, social media posting every day, and collaborating with others has been huge. For example, I'll give you a great example. We just came out with another collaboration yesterday with a company called Craft and Ride, where they print grip tape. They printed Drew's art on grip tape that goes on these one wheel devices. It's kind of like a skateboard with a motor. It's crazy dangerous. But some people, like I see people here in San Clemente riding them all the time. So that's a collaboration we just came out with, and they sent an email newsletter out to 100,000 people on their newsletter with a link to Drew's website. And let me tell you, we got massive loads of traffic from that. So collaborations are really great to do when you don't have a giant list of people landing on your website, you don't have a giant email list. Doing a collaboration and making sure that your collaboration partner is, if they have a big audience, that they send their audience to your website. You really have to take advantage of those partnerships and do it right.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear, especially if you're an up and coming artist. Another way to kind of bring in an audience is to, if you work with somebody already, or if there's a company that you're interested in collaborating with, it's worth like exploring that avenue. So I think that's really useful for a lot of people, especially, again, starting artists. Sometimes they're overwhelmed with where to start. Sometimes in person is useful, but if we're talking about the online space, for sure, getting into collabs is very useful. And, kind of to conclude things, if there's one solid piece of advice to artists you could give, what would it be?
Do things your own way. And what I mean by that is the fine art world has all these rules that, in my opinion, harm a lot of artists.
Mm.
Rules like, I've heard this rule, don't make prints of your fine art. I 100% disagree with that. I'm not saying you have to do it, but I'm saying that if you want to earn a living as an artist and get your art to more people, which is why else do you create art? Rather, if you're not going to use your art as a message in some way for the world, if you give it just to one person and they hide it away in their house, how does that help humanity? So do things your own way, find your own way. Don't do things my way. Don't do things the fine art way. Don't do things any way other than a way that resonates with you and your personal values and what you really want to do to impact the world with your art.
I love that. And again, people, you hear it here. Do it, your own way. Do what makes you happy too. At the end of the day, if you feel comfortable selling, prints, do so. If you feel comfortable doing what, Maria just mentioned, which is, limited editions, collector's editions, whatever works for you and what sticks and what you foresee yourself doing in the next, several years, like how Maria has been able to do it for so long. It's really magical to see. Um, and where can people find you, once if people want to learn more about, what you talk about and, maybe more about your partner's art, where can they find you?
Go to mariabrophy.com, and there you'll find links to my book, Art Money Success, which, by the way, is on Amazon. So you can also just go to Amazon and look up my name. But at mariabrophy.com, you'll find a link to my Art Money Success podcast, where I share a lot of my secrets. You'll also find me on my channel on YouTube. And just to let you know, Lindsay, I gave away some of my secrets that I have not shared publicly. I shared with you and your audience here today because I love Lumaprints so much. And honestly, when we started working with Lumaprints a couple years ago, things really took off for us. I just want you to know that I value what your company does. I value the quality. I value, I've spent time with the owner, the guy who started it, and he's a good guy. And yeah, just a great company run by great people.
Oh, that's so great to hear, Maria. And we're always happy to see your art in the production line. I can recognize it from a mile away when I see Drew's art, and it's like, there it is. There's the surfer art, and it's always fantastic to see the colors because one of the things we pride ourselves is the color testing, and your partner's art is like a testament to that because it's so
Yes.
saturated and colorful, and we love seeing it. So
Oh,
thank you for letting us know that, you've been enjoying our business for these past couple years. We really appreciate it. Let's
oh,
see.
thank you.
Oh, seems like we have a question from the audience. Maria, I have purchased your mural template and it's helped me get my first mural commission. Thank you. Do you still coach artists?
Oh, that is so kind, Marielle. Thank you
Maria.
for the kind words. And yes, I do still coach artists. If you go to mariabrophy.com, there you'll see a tab that says work, like work with me. And all my information is there. But what I like to recommend to up and coming artists is get my book. It's 19.95 on Amazon, and then coach with me if you love what you read in my book and listen to my podcast, which is totally free. And if you like the things that I talk about, then sign up for coaching with me.
Oh, fantastic. And yeah, thank you for the question, Marielle. Feel free to ask questions if you're in the chat right now. In the meantime, I did get a question from Jay, and he asked, can I make a six figure without selling originals?
Jay, that is a great question. And so, wait a minute, without selling originals or without selling prints?
I assume originals that like the
Okay.
original art piece. Let's
Okay.
say they're sentimental about it.
I often get that question reversed too. So, can you make six figures without selling originals? Absolutely. Absolutely, you can. The key to that is having art. I mean, this is going to sound like a no brainer, but having art that a large number of people love, being able to reach those people and nurture those relationships. A majority of the money that we make here with Drew Brophy's art is not originals. We have hardly any originals in stock the last couple years. So majority of the money we make is through art prints that we get made by Lumaprints, and through art licensing.
That's very interesting. And again, some of the considerations, licensing, prints, and you don't have to worry about selling your originals, say you're very attached to them, or say, you sell them early in the stage. So just remember, digitize them before you sell the original. And obviously, let your person that's buying your original art about the fact that you might turn it into a print later on. That's a consideration as well. And if there are no questions, or in the meantime, while people are maybe coming up with last minute questions, I'll just conclude the interview just by thanking you, Maria. Thank you for
Wow,
providing all your
thank you.
advice, and also thank you for, speaking about your experience because people come from all walks of life, and we love hearing how things worked for them. So, hearing how you and Drew have managed to succeed so well in the art business, it's always inspiring to hear.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I really do. And you're great. Your questions were perfect.
Fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. All right. And if you guys, missed part of the webinar or you guys want to see it back, we do post these on YouTube and we post them at full length. Yeah, I think it's a good time to like close. All right. So bye,
Thank you.
guys.
Thanks, everybody.